Okay, Shalom Aleichem, welcome back everyone. As we are preparing for Shabbat, this week being an extra special, we have two Parshiot, Parashat, Chukat, Balak.
Two Parashat this week?
Two Parshiot this week. Okay, so we're going to start with Chukat, and then Bez Hashem, we'll get to a little bit of Balak. Really, as I was preparing for this week, there was so much to talk about, so much to say, so many good things, but I had to choose three, like we always do three. So I hope Hashem helped me choose the right three ones, and hopefully this will have a major impact on everyone. Okay, the first lesson we have, we'll start off with the story and we'll get the lesson. The story goes, there was a true story. There was a movie theater in Hong Kong. Everybody gathered for a film to watch a movie. And while they were starting to watch the movie, at the start, they had an advertisement. And it looked like an advertisement for a car, a new car. And they were watching a nice car, the car was driving through nice scenery, and everybody was really enjoying what they, it looked like a nice car, very nice scene. But they didn't know that in the theater, they had a special machine that broadcasted a message to everyone's phone at the exact same moment. So while they're all watching this car driving down the road in this nice scenery, everyone's phones went off. And what does everyone do when their phones go off? They look down on their phone. And the minute they look down on the phone, what happened on the screen? They heard a big They look up and the car went into an accident. And it was an advertisement. Text while you drive, and that can be the results. Right? And it was impactful because you were right there and they texted you, and then next thing you see, a big crash and everything is destroyed. What does that have to do with this week's Parashat? And you think about it, with all the technology that we have today, right? We feel that we're connected. We're connected to everyone, to everything at all the same times. But at the same time, we're losing our connections to what's really important, right? They say an average person looks at his cell phone every 90 seconds. People can be sitting at a dinner with family and friends, and instead of being with family and friends, they're on their phone, texting, WhatsApping, even if it's nothing important, right? And sometimes people are in meetings and stuff like that, just straight onto the phone. And it can be something that, although we think it's a good way to connect to the world, it really takes us away from our family and friends. And sometimes the best way to connect what's really important to us is to disconnect, right? That's why Shabbat is probably one of the most joyful days for everyone. Why? First of all, there's no work, there's no business. Everything's shut down, everything's closed. You get to shut down your phone, right? Might be a little bit hard at first. Friday night, people are still sleepy because on Friday they were busy. But after Friday nights, everyone goes to have a good meal, they go to sleep, they wake up. Shabbat morning, everybody's already... And I'll tell you, I see it in the shul when I'm speaking Friday night. I have to speak quicker and faster and make it short. But on Shabbat morning, I can speak a little bit more because people are more well-rested, people are more feeling better. Why? Because they're disconnected from the world. They're disconnected from technology. In this week's Parsha, we learn about Chukat. Zot Chukat. And in Pasuk 14, it tells us something very interesting. Listen to this, Rabotai. Zot HaTorah. This is the Torah. What is the Torah? Adam ki yamut be'ohel. A person who dies in the tent. Now it's talking about the laws of the Paraduma, but reading the Pasuk it says, this is Torah. What is Torah? You have to die in the tent for it. The Gemara says, you cannot acquire Torah unless you're ready to die for it. Well, I have to commit suicide for Torah? Since when is that? You have to live with the Torah. Why do you have to? So the idea is, you have to make the Torah the only thing that exists. When you're learning Torah, that's it. Nothing else should be existing. Your phone shouldn't be next to you when you're learning Torah. You shouldn't be able to answer the emails and the phone calls and everything. And that's why I say, the men can't learn at home. Why can't you learn at home? You could learn at home. You're supposed to learn at home. But if you really want to understand what you're learning, don't learn at home. Why? We have wives, we have children, and everybody needs us. Everybody needs our help. And if you're going to be learning at home, unless you have this private study and everything's clear, you're going to be called every 5 seconds to do something. Yeah, I want to learn that way. Rav Chaim Soloveitchik, he would say a story, a true story. There was a man that he was getting older, and his hairs started turning gray, white, and he realized that he's not going to, he's getting older. It's coming to the end. He said, well, look at me. I'm always so busy with my business and my work and my this and my that. When do I have time to sit and learn? I don't have time. Someone once asked me, what about my hair is not growing gray? And if I'm going bald, what's the sign? Nope. So this guy, anyway, what he decided to do, every morning he'd go to Shacharit early. He finally started going to Minyan. He went early. And he stayed in the Beit Midrash the first 4 or 5 hours of the day. His wife, who's his partner in the business, goes to the business 9 o'clock in the morning. And her husband's not there. He comes 12 o'clock. She doesn't say anything the first day. Everything okay, honey? Everything? He says, yeah, Baruch Hashem. Okay. She thinks maybe he was busy, something happened. Doesn't want to pressure him, doesn't ask any questions. The next morning, same thing, he shows up at 12. She doesn't say anything again. The third day again, she says, now she lets him have it. She says, what happened to you? We have business, we have clients coming. Where are you? How can you do this to me? And he says to her, listen to me, my dear wife. One day, the Malach HaMavet, the angel of death, is going to come and he's going to take me. What are you going to tell the Malach HaMavet? Don't take him. I need him to open the store. I need him to do the business with me. I need him to. You can't talk to the Malach HaMavet. Malach is going to take me. Right? She says, you're right. There's nothing I can do. Malach HaMavet is the Malach HaMavet. The angel of death is the angel of death. So he says, you see, every morning till 12 o'clock, imagine the Malach HaMavet killed me. That's it. And then at 12 o'clock, Tahiyat HaMetim. At 12 o'clock, I'm revived again. And now I'm here, you should be b'simcha. But that's the idea. We have to kill ourselves for Torah, to make ourselves dead to the world. If you really want to learn Torah, and you really want to learn Hashem's Torah, and you really become great in Torah, you have to kill yourself for it. That you're not alive for the rest of the world. Rabbi Chaim Soloveitchik, he would also give this idea. He says, imagine if one day a bat kol, a voice from heaven came out and said that all the metim, all the dead people, are going to come back to life for 1 hour. What happened on that day? So he says, all the relatives, they get so excited, they would go to the cemetery, wait for their mother, father, grandparents, whatever it is, whoever passed away, and they would wait for them. And so they all gathered at the cemetery, and at the moment that the voice from heaven said that people are going to become Tchiyat HaMetim, they all started coming out of the ground, and they see their family members, and they're running over to say hi. And instead, the family member says, shh, shh. And they run, and they watch them. Where do they run to? They run to the Beit Midrash. All of a sudden, all the men are sitting down, and they all take out the Gemara, and they're learning. So they say, what are you learning? They said, we only have 1 hour to live again. The most important thing to do while we're alive is to learn Torah. We wasted time before, we're not going to waste it again. This is the idea. The idea of learning Torah, Zot HaTorah, Adam ki yamut be'ohel, the person who dies in the tent. That's how we have to view Torah learning. That it's us and the Torah and nothing else. And just as a side point, we mentioned this many times, that if a woman helps her husband to go and learn, Hashem will provide her with much help and assistance, and all of a sudden everything in the house needs to happen, she's able to do, and when the husband comes, he's also able to help. But no one will lose out. Obviously, if the husband's needed at home at certain times to do certain things, then he has to close his Gemara and he has to go, because he is needed, and no one else can do that mitzvah of helping raising the children or helping the wife. But at other times, when he can be out of the house, he needs to be out of the house, he needs to be in the Beit Midrash. And the wife has an obligation to send them out to learn, and it'll be helpful to them both. In this way, it's a gadlut b'Torah. Let's move on to our second lesson from this week's Parsha. There is a famous story. I think they even made a little YouTube clip about this. But there was once a psychologist who walked around the classroom and he was teaching stress management to everyone. And he took a glass of water, we have right over here, and he picked it up. And everyone was expecting him to say, is the glass half empty, half full? But he says to me, he says to the whole room, he says, how heavy is this glass of water? People started to scream out, 8 ounces, 12 ounces, 15, 20.
That's how long you hold it.
Very good. So he tells them, the truth is, the absolute weight, how much water is in here, doesn't make a difference. What makes a difference is how long you hold it. Right? If you're holding the cup for 1 minute, 2 minutes, it's not that bad. You try to hold it for longer, your arm is going to start to hurt. Even though it's only 8 ounces of water in there. It's not enough. It's not a lot there. So the psychologist looked around the room and said, the stresses and worries in life are like the glass of water. If you think about them for a little bit, it's fine. Nothing happens to you. You pick it up, you put it down. Think about them longer, and they begin to hurt. And if you think about them all day, then you become paralyzed. The key to remember is to put them down. Now, how do you put them down? How do you put them down? This week's Parsha, we have a very interesting and also a little bit sad story. In Parashat Chukat, we're told that again the Jews are complaining. They say, why he took us out of Mitzrayim? Was there no bread there? And the lashon that the Torah uses, the language that the Torah uses, as a tiktzar nefesh ha'am badarich. The tiktzar nefesh. How do you understand tiktzar nefesh? That they were short. Tiktzar nefesh, that their soul was short, their breath was short. What does this mean? That they were short of breath. How do we understand this? So Rav Matisyahu Solomon Shilito, he says a very interesting idea. He says when people have something difficult going on in life, it can be for one of two reasons, right? So imagine you have a very, very, very heavy package, right? A very heavy package. You have to carry it. Why is it difficult? Because it's heavy. Now let's say the package is not that heavy, but you're having trouble holding it, not because it's heavy, but rather because you don't know how to hold it. Right? Sometimes, if you don't know how to hold the thing or how to do the thing, it becomes difficult because you don't know how to use it. Says Rav Matisyahu Solomon, you have to take a look at why things are stressful and difficult. If it's a heavy package, then you call people for assistance. And if it's not heavy, I mean, it's not a real physical problem, but rather you don't know how to handle it, and it's a chisaron, it's a lacking in you're missing something, then you have to go and get the right equipment. You have to get the right thing, right? Sometimes all you need is the right screwdriver, and then you can do what you need. You need the hammer, you need the drill. You need the right equipment to do it. You have to go and get that equipment. Rashi says, and this week's parsha, in that pasuk, anything something falls on a person that's hard, it's hard for them. It's called kotzer nefesh, short of breath, because a person is toiling in it. And his mind is not wide enough to accept it. Meaning his mind is the cause of the problem. And there's no place in his heart, there's no place in his heart to accept it. He doesn't have the right equipment. So what happens right here in the parsha when they're complaining about leaving Mitzrayim because the nechashim, the snakes start to come and bite them, right? And they start getting sick. So what does Moshe Rabbeinu do at that time to save them? What did he do? Vayaz Moshe Nahash Nahoshet. He makes a snake,
Sarah.
right? Vaysameu al hanes, and he puts it on a banner, on a pole, and the people look up to it. They looked up on the snake that he put up on the stick, right? That bronze snake, and they would get healed. How does that work? What does that have to do with anything? So says Rashi. Rashi says an amazing idea. Rashi says, what? Moshe Rabbeinu is not saying, look at the snake on a stick and it's going to heal you. When they look up and they realize that it's Hashem that's sending the snakes, then they get healed. That's the equipment that we're lacking. That's how you put down the stressors in life. Who's running the show? Who's running the show? It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. If Hashem is running the show, then yeah, I have a little stress. I have a lot of stress. But put down the cup. I have the equipment. What's the equipment? Emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Look up to God. Throw your burden on Hashem. You know, there was a mashal, the Hafetz Chaim, that would say, there was once a guy, very heavy package. He was walking on the side of the road. So a wagon pulled up and said, hey, I see you going in the same direction. Hop in. So he goes in. And he takes his bag and he's holding it over his head. So they're riding for a few seconds and the wagon driver says, hey, put down the bag. He says, no, I'm not going to put down the bag. He says, why not? He says, you already did for me such a big favor that you picked me up. I don't want to also put my bag on your wagon. Right? What foolishness is that? Obviously, if you're holding it, the wagon is still pulling it. That's the same thing. Same idea. We have this cup of water. It gets heavy because we keep holding it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's there. He's carrying you. He can carry your package too. There's no such problem. You have to know how to put it down. Rav Mordechai of Chernobyl, great Rebbe, and he once shared this story with a Hasid of his. He said to him, there was once a man, he became a Malamed, he became a teacher, and he went and he taught Torah. He went away from his family to another city, he taught Torah, he collected a lot of money. He was there for 6 months. He was coming back home for Yom Tov. And on his way home, he had to stop at an inn on Shabbat. So he takes his whole package of money, doesn't know what to do with it, where he's going to keep it on Shabbat. So he goes to the innkeeper, who's a Jew, and he tells the innkeeper, please watch my money. The innkeeper says, okay, of course. He goes and he puts it in the safe over Shabbat. Once this Shabbat comes, he makes Havdalah, he runs straight to the innkeeper, please give me back my money. He comes, he gives him the money bag, and now he opens the bag and he starts looking through it. He starts counting it. He's looking. So he's looking, and the owner says, the innkeeper says, what are you looking for? He says, I see the big silver and gold coins, but I had there 1 penny. I had there 1 little copper coin. I can't find it. I'm looking for it. And he keeps looking until he finds it. So the Rebbe says, tell me, what do you think about this guy? What do you think about the guy looking for 1 copper coin?
The guy wanted to steal, he would steal the gold.
If the guy wanted to steal your silver and gold, he's not going to steal your copper coin. So obviously it's foolishness, says the Rebbe. Says Rav Mordechai of Chernobyl, listen to this. He says, every day we have all these worries. We're looking, how are we going to make money? How are we going to do everything? Did you forget where your soul goes at night? You went to sleep. And Hashem came and gave you back your soul in the morning. If we have emunah that Hashem is going to return our soul, which is most important, then why are we all concerned about that penny that we're looking for, that we're putting stressors on our life? This is the idea, Rabotai, to look up to Shemayim, and then you won't be short of breath, because you have the right equipment to deal with all the challenges. I'm going to move on to our last and final lesson from this week's Parsha. we have a pasuk that Bilam, the prophet of the Gentiles, some sort of wizard, but he had true prophecy, somewhat equal to Moshe Rabbeinu, right? V'lo Yisrael ke Moshe od, that we say in Yigdal, means in Israel we won't have another prophet like Moshe, but by the Goyim they did. They had Bilam. Wasn't such a good fellow, but he got it. And he tries to curse the Jews, and in the end, he's giving them barachot instead. And in one of his sayings, he says as follows. We're going to be in chapter 23, verse 29. Verse 9. It says over here as follows. Ki mirosh tzurim erenu umegevaot ashurenu hen am levadad yishkon uvgoim lo yithashav. For from its origins I see it rock-like, and from hills I do see it. Behold, it's a nation that dwells in solitude, and they don't mix with the goyim of the world. Says Bilam. What does this mean? Mefarshim explained, Tzurim, what are these rocks? Kimirosh Tzurim Erenu. And from hills, who are these rocks and hills? These are the Avot and Imahot, the fathers and mothers of Klal Yisrael. That's the origins of Klal Yisrael. Abraham Avinu was the Ivri. What does the Ivri mean? Everybody's on one side of the world, Abraham's on the other side. Abraham says there's one God, everyone else says there's 1.5 million, if not more. Yitzchak continues on Abraham's path. Yaakov, at that time, it wasn't simple belief to believe in one God. No one else believed that. And they were able to separate themselves from the world. They stood out and made themselves different. Says Bilam, I see from the start. He says, you look around the Jews, and somehow Jews are able to remain separate and different all the time. Even though they're living amongst the Goyim, and the Rambam says, we know very clearly and we see the effects of it, then the community you live, you pick up what everyone else does. And you'll see it seeps in. American culture, some of the good stuff are good, but some of the stuff that's not so great in American culture also seeps in. Because we're just here. But how does a Jew stand up and stand different? Because we have it in our DNA. From Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah. He says over here, Mamash, what a story. True story. Listen to this, Rabotai, in the Peninim al Torah. There was a woman in Ukraine in 1919. Her name was Selma Glickstein. And at her time, there was a lot of anti-Semitism going on in Ukraine. So she decided it would help her that if she would marry a guy. So she found a guy to marry. And within a year after marriage, she was pregnant, she gave birth, and her husband, the guy, died. And now she was left all alone to raise a child. And she decided, you know what? I'm going to raise him as a complete guy. She didn't give him Brit Milah. She gave him completely a Christian name. His name was Branislav Kaminsky. That was the name she gave him. And he was raised as a guy, and he went to Christian schools and everything. He didn't even know he was Jewish. No Brit Milah. One day, as a young man, he was going home with a group of friends, and his group of friends saw a young Jewish boy. And so they went over to the young Jewish boy, and they started punching him, beating him up, scaring him off, and made him run away bleeding. So he tells his friends, why did you do that? What did he bother you with? And they just said, that's what they deserve, these stinking Jews. He goes home and he tells his mother, he's already a young man, he was 16, 17 at the time. And he tells his mother, I don't understand. Today I was going home with a bunch of friends, and they saw a Jew and they started beating him up. Why? Why did they do that? And his aunt, who was there at the same time, His aunt turns to her sister and says to the mother, you have to tell him. He says, tell me what? She says, nothing. And the aunt says, tell him. That's why he's feeling what he's feeling. And the mother says, the truth is that I'm Jewish and you're Jewish. It was a shock of his life. He didn't believe it until she proved it. And what did this young man do? He went to the Rav of the town and he told the Rav, I'm a Jew. He's already 16, 17 at the time. And he says, now I'm a Jew, I want a Brit Milah. And as a young man, he got a Brit Milah. And he changed his name to Avram Baruch. And he grew up religious. He started being religious and everything. And during the years of the war, he ended up in one concentration camp to another. He got saved. One of his classmates was an SS soldier and let him leave and to another place where he was able to survive the war. And eventually he made his way up to Eretz Yisrael. Became a professor of mathematics at one of the colleges and was able to raise a religious family. How? Where? What? He didn't even know he was Jewish. He was already 16, 17. It's in the DNA of every single Jew. Even those who've strayed very far. He says here another true story about a Polish Jew, a Dr. Grunchan, who as a young man converted to Christianity. And during World War II, they didn't care that you were converted to Christianity. If you were born Jewish, you were thrown into the concentration camp. And he kept telling them, I'm not Jewish. And one day, they brought in a Sefer Torah, and they started a fire, and the Nazi guards went over to this Dr. Grunchan's true story. And they told him, you always say you're not a Jew? Take this Sefer Torah and throw it into the fire. He did it? He didn't do it. They started beating him up. He said, I'm not doing it. I was born a Jew, and I'll die a Jew. I'm not putting it in. And they gave him one last chance, and then they took his clothes off, and they threw him into the fire instead. And Dr. Grunchan, who lived his whole adult life as a guy, didn't leave Judaism at the end. And in the fact, he had a note in his pocket that said that he did tshuva, and he asked Hashem to please allow his merit of dying as a Jew to be a kapara for him. You see, people have gone so far. And yet, and I'll tell you, in my experience, I mentioned this before, my experience is I meet people sometimes, like, I wouldn't even know they're Jewish. And they see me, and we get to talking, and they're telling me, oh, my grandmother was my grandmother. And they have all this thing, and one guy even told me he used to put tefillin on. One rabbi told him to put tefillin on. He was putting it on 7 days a week until someone told him, don't put it on Shabbat. Right? But even though he's not connected to Judaism anyway, tefillin he does. Somehow they're connected. Somehow they want a way back. And sometimes we have to open that way back. And how do we open that way back? You see what it says at the end of the Pasuk? We're a separate nation. And we're a separate nation, we have to realize that we are a nation. There's a story over here he brings. I read this story. Rabbi Zilberstein brings this story. An amazing story. And with this story we'll end, I will tell you. There was an Israeli Bal Chesed, a man known for his many acts of loving kindness. And he was doing business in Switzerland. And as he left the hotel in Switzerland in the morning, he saw a Jewish family sitting in the lobby. No, he goes on his business stuff, and he comes back in the afternoon, and the Jewish family is still in the lobby. So he walks over to them and says, is everything okay? I see you here from the morning till now. And they say, no, everything's okay. We checked out of our room, and our flight got delayed, so we're just going to stay here until a few hours before the flight, and then we'll leave. And he says, no, it's not okay that you stay here all alone by yourself in a lobby in a hotel in Switzerland. They say, no, everything's fine. He didn't say anything more. He went upstairs to his room. He took all the food that he brought, chocolate, danishes, and fruits and different stuff like that. And he came down, he pulled up a chair next to where they were sitting, put it out for them to eat, and spent the whole next 6-7 hours until they went for their flight, talking to them and keeping them company. And he forgot about it. About a year later, he gets in the mail an invitation for a wedding. And there's a note handwritten says you must come to the wedding because you're responsible for this wedding. So now he's even more shocked. He says, what's this about? So he calls. He gives a phone call to the number on the thing. He says, I got this in the mail, and you said I have to come because I'm a part of it. What's it about? And the father who answered the phone said, I don't know if you remember, but we were the family that was in Switzerland. We were sitting in the lobby, and you came, and you gave us your food, and you gave us your time, and you kept company with us, and you made sure we got to the airport and everything. That night that you came and sat with us, me and my wife, he says, came to Switzerland because our daughter left Eretz Yisrael, went to Switzerland, and just met a Christian, a goy, and she was planning to get married. And we came there to try to convince her not to get married to this man. And she didn't agree, and she said she's going to come back to Israel, pick up her stuff, and go back. And that night you came and you sat with us and shared your food and everything. When we went to the airport, my daughter turned to me and said, if a stranger, but a Jew, who sees another Jew can come over and help another Jew like that, then I must have missed something by the Jews. There must be something greater by us. I'm going to give a chance to date another Jewish boy instead of marrying this man who I thought I was going to marry. And she ended up staying in Eretz Yisrael. She found a proper husband, and she was getting married. Why? Because we realized that we're a nation and that we help each other. And these small things, we don't even know how it's going to affect, how it's going to do, what it's going to do, right? But that in itself does wonders. Unfortunately, in our fast-paced life and American culture, see nothing, know nothing, ignorance is bliss, and your life, your way, my life, your way, floats the boat, whatever phrases it is. Sometimes we don't want to connect, and sometimes we don't want to get involved. But sometimes we need to, because we need to remember that we are a separate nation because of who? Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. So we are all connected. And Be'ezus Hashem, we should be zeicha to realize that. And when we do, we'll be zeicha to Mashiach Tzigim, Be'erim, Be'emeinu, Amen. So to quickly review the 3 lessons from this week's Parashat. Lesson number 1. Disconnect to connect to the real thing. You have to be dead for the Torah. Once I had a friend, and we talk about this, a guy who would eat. When he would eat, he would say he was dead to the world. Nothing else matters. He was focusing on his food. Same thing, Torah, focusing on that. Our second lesson was, put down the glass of water. Let Hashem carry it for you. Hashem is there. He's carrying you. He can carry your stress and your burdens as well. And our third and final lesson was to remember that our DNA sets us apart from the rest of the world. And we have the obligation to see that and know that and to realize the greatness that we have, the responsibilities that we have to one another. Shabbat Shalom Lekulam.